Hi, I'm Opio Forikume, your host at The Heart of the Matter. As part of our special Mind the Gap X program, which focuses on family life and the real issues that happen in families, today we're going to be talking about modern parenting. As a parent, do you sometimes think, I don't understand my teenager? What is he or she doing? All that social media stuff, really, what do they mean? I'm not clued up. Lanre Olusola is speaking today with Dr Abosede Lewu, the founder of Girlsaide, who has had so much experience with teenage girls. She'll use that experience today to help us better understand as parents what's happening to our kids today, how to better connect with them, and what we need to do to lead them. So please stay tuned and enjoy this program.
These things sometimes are psychology.
I think the financial cost as one of the many was a God experience. Wanted to find God, simply feeling like you're inspired. It is always so.
Tell us about the solution.
As one
People
of
with 18 to 35 years of age, not out of work.
Hey, I don't have the skills for this particular problem to solve this particular problem.
None of us talked about the bread salad.
Hello, and welcome to another special edition, the Mind the Gap X series of The Heart of the Matter. My name is Lanre Olusola, and on this episode I've got Dr Abosede Lewu, and today we're going to be talking about parenting in the 21st century. Welcome, Dr. Bose.
Thank you, Mr. Lanre Olusola, for having me.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Now, Bose is the founder of Girlsaide. She's also an O and G doctor. And, you know, she's very passionate about parenting. So, Bose, why Girlsaide?
Thank you for having me once more on the program. Well, I can say Girlsaide, I'm a bit passionate to girls, being a girl myself. And I also have daughters. But at the early phase of my life, I've always volunteered for a lot of girl-oriented projects as a part of several groups, adolescent group on, action group on adolescent health, campaign against unwanted pregnancies throughout my university days. So because of that exposure I had from early on, I was always partial towards female-related issues. And then, of course, I now went to subspecialize in obstetric and gynecology, which is mainly a female field. However, Girlsaide initiative came as a result of patients that I see. As when people ask me why Girlsaide, I tell them it's as a result of people that I see. I find out that we're beginning to see younger patients. We're beginning to see children, people that we're still calling children anyway, but they're already in universities, coming with complaints that sometimes bewilders us. And then when you ask them, you find that they don't even have any information. They're just having fun, they're just being adolescents, and their parents are not even aware of the challenges that they are facing. I see a lot of patients that they're in the hospital, their parents are calling them, and they're telling them they're elsewhere. They have a very happy voice. They're like, oh, we're in school, we're in this, and they're right there on the hospital bed, seeking care. So I started getting worried that why can't these girls tell their parents that this is what I'm going through? Why is it that it's probably when their friends have given them advices to take some sort of concoctions or some herbs, and then it gets complicated and they come to the hospital? It's when it's like near death. That's when they are willing to open up to their parents.
Wow.
So Girlsaide came out of me trying to say, what gap? There's a gap between parents and daughters. How can we void this gap? How can we fill this space up with connection between parents and their daughters? So basically that's what it's all about.
So speaking about complications, speaking about the challenges that these young ladies come to you for, what are the most common complications? What are the most common challenges that, you know, these university girls or younger girls are coming to see a gynecologist for? Okay,
so most of it stems from relationships and having unintended or unprotected sexual intercourse. I mean, you see now people are entering school earlier. We are having 15, 16-year-olds in schools. And then you find out that they had no information about contraception before they started engaging in intercourse. And then when you tell them, what we notice is that they put the emotions of whoever they are dating ahead of their own safety. Like you hear them saying, oh, my boyfriend doesn't like this. My boyfriend says if I love him, I should do this. My boyfriend says if I trust him, I should do this. And then we realize that these young girls are seeking validation from boys. They've left their parents. These are the roles of parents. We should validate our children. They should feel love from us. A teenager should not need the love of a boy the love of a parent will suffice at that age for them. And then so they end up doing so many things just because they're trying to keep an outside relationship without even their parents' knowledge. So there's an emotional gap, and then of course there's a communication gap. But you find out that they don't rely on their families for emotional stability anymore. They're looking for it outside.
Wow. So these children have basic needs.
Yes.
And these needs are supposed to be met by their parents, but they've got absentee parents. Their parents are not even emotionally there for them, talk less of being physically there for them. And so these children begin to seek for meeting those needs outside.
Yes.
Wow. So talking about parenting, what are the 21st century challenges with parents? I mean, there must be, like you said, there's a gap between the child and the parent. Why? Why are there those gaps? Now, they say that there are gaps between fathers and daughters, between mothers and sons, you know, sometimes between fathers and sons, and between daughters and mothers.
Yes.
So, based on what you've done with Girlsaide, based on, you know, your experience, you know, as a doctor, you know, based on what you've engaged in and the interactions you've had over the years, where are the challenges? What are the challenges so that the parents out there can begin, you know, to find solutions and bridge that gap?
Okay. Thank you for that question, because a lot of times I think the parents have more challenges than the children. And I think the challenges that the parents have is the fact that they are unwilling to unlearn what they knew before. The values have not changed. The values of the 60s, the good values will never change. That's why they are values. However, a lot of parents are stuck in their time. A lot of parents want to raise their children the same way they were raised. All we have to offer our children is history. Oh, in my time, this was this. I can remember I was in my late teens before I knew how to use a computer. Now, you don't need to take a new generation kid to learn how to use any gadget. It's like they learn it once they jump out of the womb, and it's like they're born smart. So you, as a parent that you came in that era, you want to pace them at the pace you were raised, but they are not at that pace. They call them the millennials. They are forward thinkers. So I think for us parents, we are the one that have a lot of work to do, which is, yes, we shouldn't lose our core values. We should stay true to our values. But what are the approaches we're taking? We should jump into their jet age, be ahead of them so that we can guide them. I think for parents, it's parents that need more work, not the children. The children are simply existing in their reality. It is what it is for their time. So you as a parent that came from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, it's high time you know that, yes, I want my child to have this and this, but I don't have, you cannot reach that child using the approach that was used for you. So you have to work on developing your approach. And then when I talk about approach, I tell people that there is no single child that is same as another child. Another challenge we have is this comparison thing. After we compare to our era and our parents, we now compare our child to another sibling and compare to another friend. Can't you see so is doing this? Can you as a parent, it is now, the onus is on you to study each child and know how you can get the best out of that child. So it's the parents that really need to do a lot of work, much more than the children.
So what are the consequences of comparison between a sibling not relating with a child based on who the child is or what the child's natural gifts and inclinations are? What are the consequences of comparative analysis with, you know, a child out there or a sibling that is smarter? What kind of effect can this have on a child?
In my research, I found out that, of course, younger children, there's a part of their brain that is more predominant. That's the limbic system. And this system responds a lot to reward. And so most teenagers do things for the reward they get from it. So if you have a child that you consistently compare to the other one, the weaker child becomes much more weakened than the child is. The weaker child stops trying, and then you find out that something you started in their when they were 7, 8, it goes on and on like that. I've seen siblings that you see one is a very high flyer and the other one just stops trying. In fact, a lot of them in a bid to cope with that pressure, because comparison is a form of pressure. And then in the process of you comparing, you look at your sibling, look at this, look at that. At the end of the day, they don't care. They do care deep inside, but they start putting up this attitude that, well, there's nothing I do that is good enough for you anyway, so I might as well stop trying for you. And then when you compare them to outsiders, it's a wrong thing because you really don't know what happens in people's lives and their houses. I have seen people that you say, oh, this child is a distinction candidate. You don't know what they go through to get the distinction. Some are genuinely brilliant. Some have already perfected the act of cutting corners. Sometimes you shove your child to that cutting corners group, like, oh, you're not getting first, let's teach you. And because this child really does want to come home this semester and you're like, yes, you're just like your brother, you make them vulnerable to someone that is going to just take advantage of them. So those are the risks you put your child at when you continuously compare them. They stop trying or they end up coping with the pressure by doing the wrong things.
Wow. So, I mean, we'll take a break. But before we take a break, you know, in just summing up some of the things that you said, so when you do a comparative analysis, it begins to destroy the child's self-esteem, the child's drive to succeed. And, you know, one of the things that I find, you know, that is common, because I also do a lot of work with teenagers and children, is that when you start to compare a child with a particular child, that child, if is not strong emotionally and psychologically, begins to want to mirror and do other things that those children that you're comparing them with do.
Yes.
So if that one is sleeping around, what you're saying to your child, it is okay for you to sleep around because you have given your child a model and a role model to follow. So everything that that child does, whether it is good, bad, or ugly, what you have just done is you have given that child a license to be like that other child. And that's why as parents, you know, we are custodians of our children's destinies. Parenting is a serious responsibility. Just hold on, don't touch that dial, and we'll be right back. In the course of my work as a life coach and psychotherapist, I've realized that many people have several problems that stem from parenting and families. That's why we have Mind the Gap X. The next edition on the 10th of September, we'll be dealing with parenting and infertility. We have a large array of speakers. We're going to be dealing with a lot of issues from sex to sexuality, homosexuality, sex, sexual styles, sexual satisfaction. It is loaded. Go now to register at mindthegapx.com. Register now. Welcome back. We're talking parenting in the 21st century, and I've still got Dr. Abosede Lewu here with me. And, you know, before we took the break, we were talking about, you know, children and the challenges that parents have with their children. This is the 21st century, and you highlighted the fact that the way we were brought up is completely different from the way our children need to be brought up in the 21st century. Now, there's a lot of parents out there that believe that their responsibilities lie in providing accommodation, paying school fees, buying their children clothes, you know, and feeding them. Please, I think a lot of parents need to be educated, to be better informed. What are the roles of parents in the 21st century?
Well, in the 21st century, those old roles still stand true. You should still be the provider for your children. But if that provision was enough, you shouldn't see children of very well-to-do parents having challenges. You shouldn't see the children of the wealthy also battling with the same issues that children from poor backgrounds battle with. So that's the first pointer for you to know that provision of material needs does not suffice. There's also the issue of physical community. I can remember growing up that I was raised literally by a village. We existed in a time where, yes, your parents were busy providing for you, but you had a neighbor, you had an aunt, you had someone living 10 houses from your house that knew where you were going to, that reported, you know, there was a mechanism then to check you. So even though your parents may not have been all out, being involved in your life, you had numerous parents. Your friends' parents, were your parents. In fact, some parents that weren't friends with your parents, they were actually literally parenting us. I can remember that I always tell this joke about the first time I barbed my hair, and I had a punk on before my parents came back from work. As I crossed the road from the salon, it was one petty trader that stopped me and asked me that, do I know the kind of people that barb punk and all that? After giving me like a 25 minutes lecture, she took me back to the salon and they scraped off all my hair.
Wow, a stranger.
Yeah, well, I used to know her. I mean, we weren't that close. And then when she took me home, my parents were like, thank you. I mean, and then I don't want to say what my parents did to me for going out to barber.
But you know what will happen today?
I won't even allow it. I wouldn't even. That's what I'm saying.
Parent,
yes, as what it is now, I wouldn't allow it.
You allow your child to do more now.
No. Well, I don't want to be judgmental, but I feel like if you give your children a pass when they're children, it's difficult for you to tell them as adults to stop doing those things. So in a sense, be fashionable to do it when they are kids, but when it becomes unfashionable, that's the reality you've given them, so you may not be able to curb it. So for parents now, you now have an isolated job. It is now on you as a 21st century parent to be the external parent and the internal parent. And for you to take, I don't think a lot of parents genuinely don't want their children to do well. I think we just don't think about it as a problem. We feel like once we can provide, we've done most of the work, which is true. But that part left, that emotional being of your child, because it's said that between the age of 10 and 19, that's when a child learns how to handle their roles as adults and how to exist in relationships. So you really have to invest yourself in this time. You have to know your child. I give examples. I have two daughters. My first daughter, when she does something wrong, she comes to you and she's shaking and she's like, okay, I'm sorry, it was an accident, I've done this. And then I have a second one that stays there and tries to clean up the mess and creates more mess. So we had to work on telling her that whenever you do something, feel comfortable to come and tell us. And that's still a continuous thing we're working on. So I can already tell that these are two different children. I have one that is open with me already, that feels, oh, if I do something wrong, I should go to my folks. And I have one already that feels like if I do something wrong, I think I should just clean up my mess. So as a parent of the 21st century, there's no manual for you. It's you learn how to parent your child within the confines of your home by studying each child and knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, and most especially their personalities.
Another thing that I find, that is a challenge is relationships. The way the husband and the wife relate one with another. Oftentimes, a dysfunctional man in a relationship with a dysfunctional woman creates a dysfunctional environment that breeds dysfunctional children that go out into society and create dysfunctionality in society. And so our parents think, or some parents think, that their children don't know what's going on. They pretend as if, our relationship challenges are secret and the children can't tell. Of course, the children know everything. And of course, it affects and infects them. So, the first responsibility is in your relationship. You've got to ensure that you guys find help. If I'm dysfunctional and if you are dysfunctional, we need to get help so that we do not infect our children with dysfunctionality. Another challenge that I find is do what I say, don't do what I do. A lot of parents have very terrible habits. They live very terrible lifestyles, and they tell their children not to do it. And they think that their children don't know, but their children do. So just last week, you had a program for fathers and daughters. Why that program?
I've gotten that question a lot of times. The father is the head of the family, regardless of what movement we're all engaging in. In a home setting, the father is the head of the family. And the father ideally should set the pace for the house. We should follow the leadership in the house. So we decided to start with the fathers and the daughters because most challenges, I know male children have their own challenges, but most challenges that daughters have, they are relationship-centered, whether with boys or with even friends and the kind of groups they keep. And the first man in a normal setting that a girl should have access to is her father. And the relationship she develops with that first man in her life should drive all the other relationships she's going to form, whether with friends, whether with opposite sex, because you hear girls saying, oh, I can't take this boy home, my father will not approve. If you think it's not important, oh, I can't take my friends home, my father doesn't like people that dress like this. I can't take my friends home, my father doesn't tolerate this. So you may think it's not important, but you see that role, and then when you see homes that children say, oh, Daddy, his opinion doesn't count, you also see that they feel a loss of control. They feel like they can do anything they want. So we decided to start with fathers and daughters because we know that the fathers have the power and the capability to drive the positive changes we want. And then over time, even as a daughter, you realize that daughters love their mothers, no doubt. But every daughter wants to impress their father. Going beyond love, you want to impress. I mean, you take your mother's love for granted. You take your mother's, mothers, we know what we do. We kind of cuddle our babies. But, you feel an extended pride when your father is proud of you. So we know that if you and your father have a very solid relationship, it's going to drive your future. It's going to determine the standard you set for yourself. You find a lot of women that is either they are looking for their father in men, or they are looking away from their father in men. So we know that if we can strengthen more relationship between fathers, of course they have other children, they'll be more conscious of what roles they have to play, especially now in the lives of their daughters. When they are now single-handedly raising families, we don't have the physical community helping out anymore.
And I often say that, when a woman says no, the man will make adjustments. Women are so powerful such that, they control the dynamics in society today. The reason why a lot of women do what they do is because of other women. Whether in competition, or whether in, compliment in terms of, I want to be like that woman, so she's a role model.
Yes.
And the reason why men do what they do is because of women at the end of the day. So we find that women are central to, society today. Now, looking at it from that perspective, and now coming back to the program that you had at the U.S. Consulate for fathers and daughters, I know I was there, I was facilitating. But for you, during the sessions that I was having with the men, what really jumped out the most for you in terms of the challenges that the men say that they were having in fathering or parenting or having conversations with their daughters?
That program was a very eye-opening program for me also, because there are problems that you assume or you presume, and then listening to the fathers talk about these problems, number one, validates the problems you were aware of and even brings to light more problems that you were not even aware of. So when we were going through some of the sessions, we also realized that a lot of parents felt a certain loss of control over the society at large, especially with the social media and the internet, their inability to control what their daughters were exposed to. So I think for a lot of them, that was what really stood out. They couldn't control. Yes, if you say you're controlling your house, you can't control the schools, you can't control what happens on the street, you can't control the internet. All kids have smart gadgets. They're using their internet savvy. And on the internet, things pop up just randomly. Things pop up. Things you are not comfortable. Surely the father said they were not comfortable with some of the things that really popped up online when their children were browsing. And they also had a problem with communication. I remember when I was going through the video, I saw that of a man that said the first time his daughter asked him to buy sanitary towel, how he was bewildered.
He almost died.
Yes, that he almost died. Then I felt like, why? Why shouldn't your daughter be able to ask you for things? It's a basic body function. I mean, if your daughter was that old and wasn't menstruating, you'll be running from hospital to hospital looking for something is wrong with this child. So when this child is going through a normal process, why do you have challenges with that? But I think across board for most of them, it was the social media and internet and their inability to control their environment that was a major challenge for them.
For fathers,
Yes.
yeah. And the fathers said that, they were afraid that they didn't have control. So fear was one of the things, that the fathers highlighted. And, so in rounding up, if you were to give quick tips in terms of how to bring up your children, whether it's a guy or boy, or whether it's a chick or a girl, what are the quick tips that you could give parents in child upbringing in the 21st century? I know that one of the greatest challenges is the internet, okay, is social media, is influence on TV and a lot of those areas. But besides that, you know, what tips would you give?
Okay, I would like to start this day by saying that parenthood is a privilege that should not be abused, and is a responsibility that you cannot neglect. If you want to know how privileged it is to be a parent, you need to attend infertility clinics. You need to live in the lives of people that have invested everything they had just to get a child. For you to know that when you are privileged to be a parent, there should be nothing that will take precedence over that. That being said, for a parent, the first thing you should know is that it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to discover your child even before they discover themselves. It's your responsibility to build a solid and trusting relationship with your children. And especially in 21st century, we live in a time where you should not only celebrate your successful children, you should celebrate your mediocre children. Because the problem you're having is not with the A-listers, it's those ones that you left behind, the ones that you allowed the smart one, the beautiful one, the eloquent one to overshadow. Those are the ones in your old age that they don't give you peace of mind because you have not invested as much in them as you ought to. And then I also say for any parent, parenting is a curriculum that never ends. The role you play when your child is less than 10 is different from when they're between 10 and 20, when they're 30 to 40, when you become grandparents. You keep parenting. But this curriculum changes. It changes with time. It changes with trend. It changes with what is obtainable. So as a parent, you should know, keep an open mind. And in as much as we're all trying to be friends with our children, you should always be the parent first. You can be a friendly parent, you can be an approachable parent, but don't let yourself become a friend, because a friend can be casual. When you're a parent, you are emotionally invested, and you know that you must get returns on this investment.
Wow. So, well, I wish we had more time. You know, leaning in from what Dr. Abosede has said, you're not your child's friend. Friendship is a parenting tool. Don't get it twisted. And, you know, if you want to be a successful businessman, what do? You go and acquire knowledge. You go to school. We call it business school. If you want to be a top medical practitioner or a doctor, you go to medical school. Where do you go to be a top parent? Are you acquiring information and knowledge for parenting? If you look around, you would find no parenting schools. The schools that were naturally set up for parenting was the family that you came from. If your family did not bring you up right, if peradventure you had absentee parents, then that's the only way that you will be able to parent. But if perchance you want to increase your insight, your knowledge, and your understanding about parenting, then come for Mind the Gap X on the 10th of September 2016 at the Guiding Light Assembly. The time is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, we've done 2 episodes of it, and this will be the third one. This third one is dedicated towards parenting and infertility. You don't want to miss it. We've got a large array of speakers, from Pastor Nomthi Odukoya to Pastor Godman Akinlabi, to Praise Fowowe, to myself, Lanre Olusola, Pastor Wale Adefarasin. We've got Osai Alile, we've got Professor Jumoke Oduwole, who is going to be speaking, and Pastor Goke Koka. Now, we're going to be dealing about 21st century parenting issues. Now, Dr. Abosede and I have spoken, about some of the issues, but we cannot dig deep and resolve issues of pornography. We cannot deal with issues of sex and sexuality, homosexuality. We cannot deal with a lot of the issues that parents cannot discuss with their children. That is, those difficult conversations that you need to have with your children. And, at the Mind the Gap X, we will be dealing with a lot of those issues, where all of the speakers are going to have time to speak on each of their subject matters, and then we'll have a panel discussion where a lot of the participants will ask the questions that they need answers to. And at the end of it, for 2 hours, we'll be having counselors, therapists, psychologists, and coaches that will sit with you and help you address your personal issues. You cannot afford to miss it. Register now. And thank you very much for tuning in to this special edition of The Heart of the Matter. My name again is Lanre Olusola.